to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Come to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it, chop it, chop it, chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it, chop it, chop it up. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about.
You are now tuned in to the Chop Shop with your host, Pastor Marvin McKinstry Jr. Let's chop it up.
Good evening, everybody, wherever you might be. I'm excited, as always, to bring you another episode of the Chop Shop, y'all. Tonight, things are going to be flowing a little bit different. Our engineer, my right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts, isn't with us right now. He may jump on at any time because today he was in Towson handling some very important business. Normally, we would go to a few of our regular announcements, and I'm sure we're going to get those in tonight. But I want to go to this video to kind of show you how it went down. Y'all know the story. There was an incident in Towson last week where a shop owner out there literally went way, I mean, we can't even call it crossing the line. The brother went way out of pocket and used a really egregious racial slur against our producer. Y'all know how it went down. They made him go viral. And today was an organized protest out there. I'm going to let the video speak for itself.
Right now.
That's what she said.
Remember, everybody had that Blackout Tuesday.
Yeah.
Then they started to delete it from their page. They got hashtag BLM. But when somebody say, "Oh, your hair kind of nappy," oh, don't say anything. Don't shade. Keep it cool. It's whatever. Just relax. Oh, so you don't? That's cool with you? Bet. It's called performative activism. I'm tired of seeing ACAB and BLM on people's bios, and they're not about it. So if you're not about defending your brother, your sister, take it out your bio, because you're not about it.
Period.
All right, y'all. Y'all seen it today. People showed up and showed out to support our brother. And when he comes on, I'm sure he's going to give us a brief update. But we got a fire show for you tonight. Before I can get to that, I got to bring on my two co-hosts, y'all. We reformatted the show and we added some other voices. I'm so excited because it's just taking this thing to a whole nother level. Not to mention tonight, our guest is just that. I'm going to give y'all a little sneak peek. Oh, that's the wrong one. Can't give y'all too much. I got the wrong one back there. But listen, I want y'all to be excited tonight because we got who I affectionately call the Voice of Baltimore, and y'all gonna know why with us. But before we get to that, I gotta bring on the one and the only Miss Hot Take herself. Lady Lisha is in the building. Lady Lisha, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
Look, she's been excited about this interview, TJ, so I'm sure she's gonna have some pretty hot takes for you. And the one and only Chelsea, the kept woman, is with us as always tonight, ready to bring a whole nother level of perspective to this conversation about Baltimore.
Good evening. Good evening.
So I need everybody to like, love, and share this broadcast. Listen, I need you to go as far as if you are, and I'm doing it right now as I'm speaking, if you know that there are people that you think should be a part of this very important conversation tonight about our Baltimore City, I need y'all to tag them in the comments. Let's get the numbers up tonight because my guest is definitely going to make sure that he makes it worth your while that you are here tonight. And without further ado, I want to bring him on. Y'all saw in the markup that we had on the page today that he is formerly the voice of Baltimore City Police Department. Listen, I'm telling you, it seemed like bad news got easier to hear when this brother began to get on the air and be the one that was conveying it. Not to mention the times when he had good news for us because somebody was captured, arrested, or taken down. His love and his passion for the city of Baltimore, even through the tragedy of losing his own brother, fueled him to become a candidate in the mayoral election of 20, what year was that? Y'all help me out, 2020. All right. And he fared really, really, really well. He came in third behind two of those candidates that y'all just keep voting for, and I don't know why. That's right. I said it in public, right? And then from there, he's been a contributor in many, many, many different places. His opinion and perspective very sought after in news and media. And now he has the hottest news show in that 10 to 2 a.m. slot. Following up C4 and them ain't been easy. It's been a while since they had somebody in there that did it well, but now they got the right voice for Baltimore. I'm talking about the one and only, my friend and my brother, Mr. TJ Smith. TJ, thank you for being with us tonight.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And, obviously stand in solidarity with Shaka out there in Towson. I saw the disgust of what went on out there. And immediately when I saw the video, I made sure it got out to the Baltimore County government and said, this is something that shouldn't be on the small business tour list. Because if that's how he wants to treat and talk to people that are constituents spending green, he certainly sees through green and sees the color, and he wants to call people names. We don't have to support that, and hopefully many more can stand in solidarity, and they don't have to be black people in general that don't want to tolerate that level of foolishness in our community.
TJ, I thank you for that, man, and I'm excited because you always accept my invitations. From the time that I started doing this, I'm not a professional. I'm not the most well-known, but a mutual respect, brother. But the thing about you, as we give a little bit more background that I want to give, that always stuck out to me is I remember 5 young people at Excel Academy had been murdered in one school year. And we decided to show up there and spend an entire day just loving on the school. The principal was crying. They were just people that were just exhausted with what was taking place with the young people. And I don't know who invited you, brother, but you showed up. You stayed the entire day. You didn't come as a BPD person. You didn't come as anybody with an agenda. You came as a black man in Baltimore who cared about what was happening to our kids. And we had somewhat of a relationship because by then we had been to Chicago and did some other stuff. But that day changed who TJ Smith is for me. So when it came down to Dion and other things, man, I've always had no problem showing up and showing out for you. And I'm a faithful listener to your show because I know the man behind the microphone is a genuine brother who loves Baltimore. So I want to thank you for that, man. But I want to get right into this conversation because the various hats that you wear, you have a law enforcement background. You're a very educated brother. You have that show and you don't take no tea for the fever. He is as level and balanced as you can be on his show. He ain't right, he ain't left, he ain't none of that. He's just truth driven. And we got some things in Baltimore that, whether it be as a former mayoral candidate, as a former BPD, or just a guy who loves this town, you bring just a different kind of insight, man. Like, I love listening to your takes on things that's happening in Baltimore. Tell people about the TJ Smith show, kind of how it came about and that sort of thing.
Well, first, I appreciate all that, Marvin. That means a lot. And if I'm not mistaken, that might have been Markel Scott at the time.
Yes, it was.
Academy, and became friends with his mom and even got to know his dad coincidentally. And before I was a public figure, I was still doing stuff here in Baltimore, although I didn't work here. But then when you're a public figure and you do it, people see that you do stuff. So it's different. And that was actually like part of my prerequisite when I came. I was negotiating with the commissioner. And when I talked to my office, even, I said, we're the faces of a lot of bad news. We should be involved in some of the community activities as well to be connected to this. It's got to be more than just this TV stuff. We should really feel it to be able to really talk about it. But the TJ Smith Show on WBAL News Radio 1090 and FM 101.5 came about from conversations. I've been filling in, doing stuff. My man, Coach Butch McAdams over on WLB. I was doing some stuff over there. The great Larry Young, I had an opportunity to fill in for him. And, I've been in and around. I did stuff at WMAR with a podcast there that's still going strong. And, one thing I said was I wanted to be true. I'm not going to be slanted. I'm not this hard right person. I'm not this crazy to the left person. I'm straight down the middle, and I kind of call it how it is. And if I'm part of any sort of party, it's the common sense party. And it's kind of, sometimes what a lot of people are feeling. It's not going to necessarily be what everyone's feeling, of course not, but it's what a lot of people are feeling. And as spokesperson, I did try to channel that energy because it was real. When something was ridiculous and stupid and unbelievable, I said it that way. I didn't try to find big words to say it. I said it just that way because that's what it was, and that's how we all felt. And that's kind of the energy I try to channel into the show that I do now. And, you know, it's going to be some people that get mad at me with some of my takes. Ironically, again, when I talk about fair and balanced, I can't give too much of a preview, but I'm doing a report card tomorrow as we end this second quarter. And there are a lot of critics of the mayor, me being one of them. And I have to be critical at times. And people are probably going to be mad at me because I happen to be fair as well. So as I'm critiquing, I can also be fair. So he might call me tomorrow and say, "Oh, I appreciate something," or he could be mad. It depends on which way he looks at it. But he could be that's the only sneak peek I can give you. But you know, looking at what I'll be looking at, it's the way, if you look at it through the fair lens, you have to give credit where credit is due.
Well, I'm excited because I'll definitely be tuned in. I look forward to those report cards, and I didn't even align that I had got you on here right the day before the report card.
Yeah,
so listen,
oh, coincidental.
Okay, everybody, make sure that you tune in to hear that. But that's a great segue into a lot of what the conversation that we're going to talk about as we talk continually about Baltimore is going to center around crime. And that's one of the areas I get really excited to talk to you about, because you have and I think people know you more so as the spokesperson, but don't know you have major law enforcement credentials beyond being somebody that, you know, can get on the mic and talk. When we look at what people are talking about in 2023, you're seeing a bunch of different takes. And some of the stuff that I'm seeing is, of course, celebration from the administration and people that are in that position that they're saying that crime is trending down. And then you have some folks who say that that's not the most genuine way to put it, because the first half of 2022 last year was the most violent that we've seen in the history of the city of Baltimore. Can you bring some middle ground to that based on your perspective as somebody who cares about Baltimore, who has run for public office and has strong law enforcement background? Like, where do we really view this in order to be able to have a fair perspective of it?
Yeah, so you have to really look behind the numbers, look at the trends. And right now, the facts are the facts. 6 months into the year, there are 40 less homicides than there were this time last year. By any stretch of the imagination, that's good. There are 40 less families grieving the loss of a loved one compared to this time last year. Even the years prior to that, we're still lower than where we were. So that's a good thing. Is that a trend? It's too soon to call it a trend, because the non-fatal shooting number, that means the amount of times people shot people intending to kill them, attempted murders, basically failed murder attempts, that number is also less than where it was a year ago, but still, it's still trending in the neighborhood of where we've been the last 8 years. So we still have roughly the same amount of people intended to be killed that have not died. So we still have work to do, but we're progressing in the right direction at this point in the year. I think it's going to take some time. And one of the things that I speak about often is, if we are at a point where we're seeing a decline and we start to notice trends and we're bucking some sort of trend that we've been on, the pattern that we've been on, is it because we've taken someone big off the streets, or some people, some groups big off the streets, somebody who was importing guns, someone who was the shot caller? It's something to it. There was no switch that was flicked on December 31st, 2022. There wasn't. However, we can also look at this. There were buttons that were pushed in 2022. And those buttons were in the 40 percentile for Ivan Bates as state's attorney. And his delivery is different than what our previous state's attorney's delivery was. And psychologically, if people feel like I might be held accountable differently, they might act differently. The whole, when your daddy come home, this might happen to you, is a different level of corrective behavior versus I'm going to act out because mommy's not going to discipline me like daddy. So right now, psychologically, it could be a different effect as well. And we heard it on jailhouse tapes when people who were behind the wall saying, Ivan's not playing. It wasn't a political ad. It was real people behind the walls.
I want to ask you about that because that was one of my questions. What is it fair? Is it too early to really look at and explore if, in fact, it is what we call the Ivan Bates effect? Is it too early to kind of look at that? Because there are other things that are being touted, the group violence reduction strategy being one, and some other things that are at work here in Baltimore. From, again, your expertise in law enforcement and your keen eye that you keep it focused on what happened. How much of this do you attribute to being the Ivan Bates effect, or do you really see it being some of the mayor's programs and policies actually working?
It could be a combination of everything. Like I'm a supporter of GVRS, the Group Violence Reduction Strategy. I actually got to do a micro version of that before myself. When you do put a lot of resources into an area that is having a lot of problems and you're focused on the offenders, focused on the people who are most likely to commit offenses, it's I hate to make it really dumbed down, but it's obvious you're going to have some effect on them if you're flooding it with different resources. They don't want to say the word police, but that's the reality. Where if you're locking up people who don't want to do the right thing, and you're then reaching out to others who might be having some difficulties doing some other things, that's actually a very good thing to do. But at the same time, that psychological effect, I don't think you can underestimate it. When you're telling someone there are going to now be repercussions, that can psychologically affect you. That can make you feel like, okay, I don't want to do this. I mean, again, just simply think about this from a rational person's perspective. If you see a speed trap in your community, are you going to continue to speed past it? Or are you going to say, oh, they did say they were going to give out tickets, and slow down? You're going to slow down. So there are going to be some that continue to go past it. And they're going to be the majority to say, I'm not going to keep getting tickets, because now they said they're going to give out tickets. And I think that's kind of where we moved, because you had somebody who has said, you know what, now we're going to enforce these low-level offenses. I don't want to put you in jail, but we want to enforce them. And you can use other examples. The squeegee initiative that the mayor implemented. We're going to hold you accountable now. It doesn't mean we're going to lock everyone up. However, you're not going to be on the corner. You can actually get results when you do stuff like that, when you actually have some sort of consequence for an action. I hate to make it sound that simplistic, but yes, it can be that simplistic. But when you're telling people we're not going to do something, there are people who are actually going to take advantage of that. And I think we saw that for a number of years.
Chelsea, the Catwoman, has a question for you, TJ. Chelsea, what you got?
Good evening. I'm glad. Thank you for being here with us. Absolutely. I just have a quick question. Are you in support of paying the young people for not being on the corner for squeegee?
Look, it's not tax dollars. I don't believe in negative reinforcement. I believe you have to be doing something to earn money. I don't believe in just giving money to people for no reason. I've always been in support of, let's get the squeegee people into the mindset of work, because we want to build good men, not build dependent men. We want to build good men. So if we train them to think that they're supposed to get something for doing what you're supposed to do, which is you're not supposed to hang on a corner, then that's what they're going to think life is supposed to be about. But if I'm telling you, if you're here at a specific time and you do this job and we're going to pay you, and we can also say, all right, we understand you have these problems going on in life, and we're going to support you and supplement certain things in your life.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. So then how do we deal with the squeegee kids are gone, but now it's the influx of the panhandlers. So what are we going to do for them? So they've increased.
They're separate issues. The panhandle, I don't even know if they've increased, or as opposed to now we're seeing them more because we don't see the squeegee people.
Okay.
The panhandlers, in my opinion, we're dealing with more of a mental issue than we were dealing with the squeegee situation. And trust me, every morning I ride by one particular homeless person.
So do I.
Corner. And I ask myself, do our government officials have blinders on? How the heck can you see this guy every single day and ride past him? And no one's done anything to get him off the corner. Do we not have a single program in this city, anywhere in this city, to address the issue that this one person is having and has had for the last number of years? A lot of that, in my opinion, is mental. And the capacity to increase the inpatient mental health treatment is real. And that's a lot of what the homeless population and the vagrant population on the streets need versus the sound mind, body, and soul and able bodies that were on the corner doing the squeegeeing. And I said before, we're giving them false hope, telling the entrepreneurs, you're washing my windows. I have windshield wipers. No, you're not an entrepreneur. Now, if 4 of y'all got together and were like a pit crew and cleaned my rims and had tire shine on it, and I'm like, now that's new. That's a new idea. Baltimore might have treated that differently. If it was a pit crew that came and boom, did it like that quick at a light, and we're like, holy crap, my car got washed while I set at the light. That could be entrepreneurship.
Right.
You sending ideas out there, Lady Lisha. What you got?
I'm just curious that we have any type of updates on how effective this curfew has been. I haven't gotten another text message. It was a big boom in the beginning, and now it's like,
yeah. Well, here's the reality of the text messages. I mean, the curfew. It was a big deal when it happened, and I personally think the mayor erred in saying curfew. I think he was frustrated, said it, and was like, oh, crap, I said it. I call it the youth options program because they don't have to do it. But again, once again, give credit where credit is due. At the beginning of this year, we were talking often about children being victims of violent crime, being murdered. That was what spurred this curfew. It was 2 kids, a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, who were shot down in a harbor on Easter weekend. That's what kind of spurred the anger to create the curfew. Curfews created. I wasn't a big fan of the whole idea because, again, I thought we came out all apologetic. No, I actually thought that the mayor should have came out, and they could have been yin and yang. The mayor could have been the more disciplinarian, and former director, or tomorrow afternoon, former director Jackson could have been the soft, gentle parenting approach. But I think he could have came out and said, okay, you're not going to be out after hours, period. End of story. We have options for you, but we're not going to tolerate this. But all of we're going to give you things to do. We're going to no. I'm sorry. You don't get the choice. No, you're 12. Go home. You're not going to be out here at 11 o'clock. I'm not going to explain. No, get off the street. It's violent, and we're going to hold your parents accountable if you think you're going to run these streets, period. We don't have to explain away everything. We're not going to ultimately arrest you, but we're not going to sit here and play this game and say we're not going to have the police involved. I'm not going to go through all that with you. I'm talking to a child, and we have to remember that when we're having some of these conversations. But to answer your question succinctly, because I go into a long diatribe, I'm sorry, but they haven't taken any kids to the centers. They've since consolidated them, the center, into one, and they said they've engaged youth after the hours, and they basically complied. And there hasn't seemed to have been any big issues. So guess what? If it's not a problem, we'll take them for their word, and we haven't seen it being a problem, and we aren't reporting on kids being shot and kids being killed at the rate we were earlier in the year, and now the kids are out of school and it's warmer. So we'll take that. That's a win in my book.
TJ, I want to talk to you because we've entered into an election cycle, and realistically, we're starting to hear a lot of conversation. A lot of this conversation, let me say this, is fueled by the fact that people want to retain their jobs come next year. Where should we draw the line? Where should we draw the line when we start to hear conversations about numbers decreases versus the fact that we have a culture and a climate in Baltimore around this crime that people are still just as afraid now as they've ever been, just as concerned about it. And most of the polls that I see and I read about, people don't really see much of a change, even though we're seeing that 40 less murders this year than we did last year. Where do we draw the line as it pertains to the climate and the continued concerns and the fear of the people, because you know how we do with our brothers, we are us, which you have been a major part of. One life is one too many.
Right. And obviously I won't be endorsing anyone, but people have to remember the election's not based on 1 year. It's not based on the last thing that happened. It's based on everything that has happened. It's also based on more than just one thing. I'm a believer in, as much as we talk about crime, we also have to really look at the root causes and everything else associated with it. When we talk about building back Baltimore, it's also about getting in more residents into the city to build up the tax base, to get more money and get more opportunity for the city and for the residents. And the more money and more opportunity that you're having coming into the city, the better it will be for everyone in the long run. As long as the population continues to decline, the troubles are going to continue to come and continue to pile up. We collectively, as people that do have microphones and platforms, we have to educate voters. Voters, unfortunately, don't educate themselves as much as they should. They need to know the capabilities of the people that they're going to be voting into office. I used to sit on these forums when I was running for office and hear some of the people that were running for office completely lie out their mind, just say stuff that they would do. And I'm sitting there like, look at this liar. I mean, they're just making up stuff. Like, you cannot do that as mayor. And you sit there telling the people you're going to do that. And some of them didn't win. But I'm not saying no names. I ain't going there. Y'all ain't getting that deep.
Well, I do want to explore.
Ain't sitting in the mayor's seat. But people just make up stuff because, unfortunately, people will believe it and think that they can do all of this. No, you cannot. So people need to understand there are things that a mayor, for instance, can be a big cheerleader for and be behind and use the position to really add influence to, but you can't really change it. The mayor can't change the curriculum of Baltimore City Public Schools. Can the mayor be influential and a cheerleader and say, we need to do this? Yeah, but can you change the curriculum? No, you can't do that. So don't let anybody fool you, just using that as an example. So us just being more in tune with what we actually want, and you looking back at the record and saying, this is what we actually want. Like I took a call today on my show with a guy. We're talking about stolen cars. Stolen cars is like a huge deal right now that a lot of people probably aren't paying attention to.
Yes.
300 stolen cars last week alone. Almost 300 stolen cars in attempts. A combination of two. Last week alone. That's how many were stolen in the less than that in the entire month of July last year. I mean, in just 1 week. 1,000 cars nearly were stolen or attempted to be stolen in the month of May alone. I mean, it's an absurd number, right? And, I got some calls today as I was talking about the subject, and a guy said, you keep saying that there need to be more penalties. It's not their fault. It's not. I said, well, the politicians, and this is more the legislative branch at the state level, have been stripping away penalties for when it comes to holding younger offenders accountable, whether it's putting them in a program or whatever. Many are going right back home after they commit offenses, but there are people who are under this mindset that because the law is on the books, that means it translates to people being held accountable, and that's not what's really happening. So people really need to do their homework to understand what's on the books for the laws.
Day is joining the conversation. My right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts. TJ, I want to ask you, I want to double back to something that you said, because you were talking about the population. And literally, we have been hearing for years conversations around gentrification. I'm almost certain I was listening to your show.
Yes, you were.
And it was announced that most of the population decline is African Americans who are choosing to leave Baltimore.
50,
and it has everything to do with the poor school system. I have a 3-year-old whom I love, and I'm already exploring options for him for school. And Baltimore City Schools it's not a last option. I'm a Baltimore City resident, and it's not even an option. So talk to us a little bit more, unpack that a little bit more, because I was listening to your show. And it really turned my thought process and my perspective, because we've been hearing for years as though we've been being robbed. And literally the population decline, the major part of the population decline is African Americans who are saying, I got to get out of Baltimore.
Yeah. Well, I say this all the time. I don't have a issue saying it. My son actually is in the background playing his game. I'm a product of public school, product of Baltimore City public schools mainly. But my child is not a social experiment. I have one child, one chance to get it right. And I work hard every day to give him the very best. And you know what? I'm going to put that effort into ensuring he gets the very best. And unfortunately, we've fallen short in many areas. And of course, education being one of those areas that needs to improve. And that's gone on for many, many years. But we've seen that population decline fall in the African-American community specifically. And a lot of that is so many different reasons. It's the lack of investments in the communities. And I talk about it often. It's not enough to see cranes down around the water and talk about the beautiful up and coming communities down there, which I enjoy. I need to look uptown and see some cranes. I need to look and see what we're doing to connect the communities there, as opposed to the same communities that have continuously got investments. What's going on up on the west side? What's going on, in these communities that have historically been disinvested in order to get more investments? Where's the building happening there? And if we don't start sustaining those types of communities, we're going to continue to see the population erode. I like to use the Howard Park community as an example because I think it's a great community to discuss, because it's an older, mainly Black community, single family homes, some row homes in there over in the Gwen Oak community. And they got the supermarket again, but then you have the epicenter at Gwen Oak and Liberty Heights where all the problems take place. What are we doing about that? We keep talking about the Ambassador Theater.
Brand new school.
We're going to turn it into an arts place. We're going to eventually turn it into an arts place. It's been sitting there vacant for years still. But downtown, where you can trace back political contributions, and cranes go up, the zoning gets changed, the permits get signed, everything happens just like that. But we still waiting on the Ambassador Theater. They put some new paintings up there, but it's been vacant for years. We watched that Big B or the Super Pride be vacant for years sitting there. We have a beautiful golf course in the middle of that community, a brand new community school there. The community can be connected. It's a great community, a senior center there. It's a thoroughfare to the county. It's right there. It's a beautiful homeowner community that can be sustained. And it's a little bit more that should be done and can be done. That's the stuff we need to be working on.
Chelsea the Catwoman, what you got?
I have a question for you, Mr. Smith. What about can you say what you see the connection between the schools, the lacking of the schools, to the crime?
Oh, I mean, the whole school to prison pipeline. That is where it is. That is
exactly.
If we're not educated, I mean, think about this. Just think about this. Once a kid gets into their own, comes into their own, and they the cool kid, but they dumb as a box of rocks, they're going to stay the cool kid before you get to know that they dumb as a box of rocks.
Right, at whatever cost.
They're going to drop out and hit the streets. Mm-hmm. And they still remain the cool kid that no one realizes is a dumb kid. And that's unfortunate because, unfortunately, the system has failed them. The fact that we've allowed this crisis to continue, the school crisis, the fact that our kids aren't reading at grade level. And look, I think when we talk about reforms that are necessary, and we keep talking about the police reforms, and oh boy, see, Marvin trying to get me in trouble. I'm trying to be on my best behavior. I probably got myself in trouble today.
Come on.
But my good people at the NAACP today had a press conference calling out the mayor for choosing
my brother Kobe Little
for choosing a police commissioner, but we need to call out what's happening with our schools. And this is not. Let's be fair here. I don't care who the school CEO is. This is not all on the school CEO because the state sets some of the boundaries for this stuff, and they're forced to deal with the hand that's dealt to them. And if we aren't doing anything to completely wrinkle up that system and make some educated children some damn good educated
Exactly.
children, we're
Exactly.
going to continue to produce kids that have a better opportunity at hitting the streets than hitting the job market.
Right.
And if you educate a kid properly, they're going to hit the job market. They're actually going to have more common sense. They're going to have more critical thinking skills, and they, believe it or not, might think before they act. Therefore, that can lead to less violence, and that can also disrupt that whole school to prison pipeline. And some people don't like the term, but the point of the whole term, school to prison pipeline, you don't have any skills. You don't have a skill to work a cash register. You don't have a skill to work a white collar job. Don't have a skill to work a blue collar job, but you have a skill. You have a skill to pick up a gun and go rob somebody. You have a skill to go sell drugs, etc. And that's where you end up in jail. You're actually just dying slowly.
Right.
You know, we count the numbers today of the trigger that's pulled, but you're dying slowly, and we'll count you years from now when you're 25 or 26.
Right.
Lady Lisha, what you got?
Okay, so I totally abandoned my whole thought process with the question I had previously, because now, considering the youth, I'm looking at how social media possibly plays a large portion in the mindset that these youth have. I have a son, he's 18 now, finally done with school, but I pulled him out of the school system and homeschooled him for high school, which is typically the opposite of the way parents typically homeschool. Mainly to avoid some of the stuff that's going on now. But I can't eradicate what social media and what, pop culture is telling my son is okay. So the idea of getting a job, finding a trade, those are ideas that this generation are embracing. So how do we do that? How do we get our kids to a place where they can look past living for today?
Yeah, I'm actually fully on board nowadays that social media is the devil. If you don't know how to consume it and don't understand it, and you don't understand that people are selling dreams and really aren't living the dream that they're selling, it can psychologically affect young people, and it really is. I don't know how many parents aren't dealing with that same exact problem. But it's also having those real conversations. The fact that children will legitimately say they want to be an influencer when they grow up, or that's the lifestyle they want to lead, is kind of scary. And we have to, as parents, guide them off that track. And it's a balancing act. I think we're all still trying to navigate our way through it, of trying not to, put old ways on them, because there is a new way and there is the monetary way that they can benefit from it. But let's also make sure you have some skills. Make sure there's a skill set there, that you're marketable, and having that honest conversation that everything you see on social media is only what the people are telling you. This is all false. Yeah, go ahead.
But we're doing that. Parents are doing that. That's not far-fetched to believe that parents are doing that. But I'm thinking that when we consider how we approach the youth in Baltimore, we've been approaching the youth in Baltimore from a very traditional setting, from the way that they approached us when we were in high school and in middle school. And these are different kids. Yeah. They're not the same. Yeah. So are there any non-traditional techniques in place to reach our youth using social media or using some of the tools out there that they use?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because as I've been railing about these Kia boys that have stolen cars, I actually used that. They use social media. The whole network of how all the Kias and Hyundais have been stolen has been through TikTok. They've learned how to do it through TikTok. The key, they learned how to do it and they marketed it. If we talked about they created this product and they marketed it, we are talking about geniuses. But they did this from a criminal standpoint. So we're talking about criminals. We could actually look at that model, and that's what I've been kind of talking about this whole thing. If we can infiltrate some of the young people maybe who haven't gone down that path, some of the young people that are salvageable from that path, how can we turn that to a positive? Y'all are taking to this, So how can we use this to educate you? How can we meet you where you are? We are still traditionally bringing you into class, sitting you down from 7 to 2:30 in the afternoon and teaching you the same way we've taught you for 50, 60, 70 years. Is it time to adjust that? We're listening to music differently than we did 50, 60, 70 years ago. So why aren't we educating you differently than we did then? And I think that's all part of it. We have, unfortunately, a lot of old school mindsets that are putting together the plans to tell people how we're doing it. Now, there's a balance there because, again, in fairness, yes, I railed against the mayor who said he brought 300 kids in to come up with the plan, I think, for the curfew. I'm like, children are not going to tell me what to do when it comes to something like that because it wasn't enough adults in the room. I understand bringing them to the table, but the kids that came to the table are likely not the kids that are going to be out there violating the law anyway. These are the kids that are saying
the cadre of the willing.
Yeah. So that's great. Thank you for your input. But we as adults have to have a seat at the table to ensure that there are guardrails. So I think that we just have to really think completely outside the box to try to make sure we educate our kids. And can we meet them where they are with the social media instead of saying no? It could be a way to get there. But that is definitely something that we have to really have a brainstorming session on.
TJ, I want to spin back a little bit to what probably is more the political conversation. Mm-hmm. When we look at the police commissioner interim, fire chief interim, Monzi director as of Monday interim, DPW soon to be, if I'm not mistaken, the end of August, we'll probably have an interim person there. There are at least 6 major offices in City Hall that does not and has not had stability. Talk to us about that from the perspective of someone who obviously prepared at least to be mayor. What kind of statement does that make, if any, about the administration? And if there's anything from your perspective that you see that is either red flag or otherwise, it may not be a negative. Talk to us about just in general what that should mean to a constituency who's preparing to vote either to extend the term of the current mayor or look into a new leader.
So one of the things, and again, I want to make sure I make it clear on your show as well. I'm not running. I won't be a candidate for office in 2024.
We was going to ask you later.
All right, there you go. There's the answer to your question. I won't be a candidate for office in 2024. So I want to make sure I preface that for my statement because I don't want anything to ever appear adversarial. The mayor and I have a great relationship. And I think part of that becomes because I'm not running against you. So I'm not ever doing anything to gain any sort of competitive advantage. I'm fair. I had a life before. There was a moment that I thought that it was a great opportunity to do that level of public service. And I knew I was going to have a life afterwards. So it was very easy to roll off my back. I say all that to say, I've had the occasion to be a leader, to be a manager, to be a supervisor, to be in these environments and lead people. That's not an easy thing to do. To have to lead different personalities, to recognize how to deal with people, to also go through moments where you have to recognize humility of understanding how to hire people and hire people who are smarter than you, more capable than you, that can make better decisions. And having that humility to be able to take to understand that, like, I'm the most electable person, but you're the brains behind this operation. It's okay. It's okay to be like that. I worked for County Executive Johnny Olszewski in Baltimore County. That was my last job before I ran for office, actually. And we had a core capable team of senior people. And he kept the main core of his senior team, for the most part, intact for his first 4 years in office. Most executives do. For the first term, they usually keep the core people in place that they appoint. You might have people that they retain start to turn over a little bit because they were given a soft landing, a soft exit or whatever, but they start to just gradually go out. But in general, this is an alarming amount of people that have left. And the ones that are most alarming, Chris Shorter was certainly a more alarming one because it was a very short stint and he came here. You moved back
For
over
that position, a new
Baltimore
position.
for this inaugural position, and you're only there for a year and a half for something so critical and so important. The police commissioner, not a big deal, quite honestly, because of how long he was there. But then you look at some of the other ones. Shantae Jackson was a bit surprising. You and I both know her, and I think I can just take some guesses and think that was a heavy lift. And I know she probably wears a lot of that, and it probably hit her heart a lot harder being in that type of job than she maybe thought it would. I'm just guessing, and I could be completely off base on that. But when you're a manager, you make some friends, you also make some enemies, and you have to try to choose the very best that are going to be there for you and going to be there for the city and make the very best decisions. And something has been left to desire there because this has been a lot of turnover, and change is not good for the rank and file people who get the job done because they really don't have any continuity in messaging or continuity in leadership.
Of the things that we've talked about, the reality of what the full picture of crime has looked like versus the promise that was made, that 15% drop below 300 murders in the first term. Collectively, the 4-year, as you say, report card, or the high turnover in administration.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would be the thing that voters, you being a Baltimore City voter yourself, be the things that you most critically look at? And I don't know if it's going to mess up your report card. Are there any wins that you would look at holistic as you look holistically at our current mayor and say, these are the pros, these are the cons? How does TJ Smith view that?
Look, you can look at the entirety of the term. I always thought it was a bad idea to ever put stats on human life. 15%. So we're okay with X amount. If they're 299 murder, we're okay. That's winning. I don't think that's ever a good thing. I think making progress to be better every single day is your goal. And whatever the number ends up being, if it's better than what it was, that's what we're striving for. And we don't want to put a number on it to basically be like George Bush on the aircraft carrier with mission accomplished. That's not fair to the 175 families. If we had 175 murders, that's great in comparison, but that's 175 families that you're kind of like, hey, sorry, y'all had to be the sacrificial lambs. So I don't believe in that because it's not fair to them. With that,
can we unpack that a little?
Yeah,
so what do you say if you are the mayor and you're seeking re-election? And let's say, for instance, this year does end.
We're trending in the right direction. We're trending.
Okay.
We're trending. The trends show us doing better than we've been, and we're going to double down on what we've been doing to hopefully have less than what we had now. It's a reality where we know it's not going to be zero overnight, but we're not striving for 299. We're not striving for 15%. We're striving to be safe. We're striving to win today, and we're going to strive to win tomorrow, and then strive to win the day after that. And that's what we're going to continuously do. But I look at this again, when we talk about the word holistic, all right, beyond the idea of crime, which is the big ticket item, of course, I look at who do you want being in a room negotiating with a Fortune 500 company to come to Baltimore to sell the city and sell to people who aren't from here that this is a great place to live, work, raise a family, to bring a new tax base here, and why it's attractive and what you're doing to make sure they're safe. Can you sell it honestly? What are we doing to make it an inclusive city for everyone? One thing I don't agree with is building up barriers around the city where it's not welcoming. There are people outside of the city that are very critical of the city. Do they have a right to be critical? In my opinion, I think they do. Why? I look at them as, if we look at this as a business, I look at this as a business and say, as the business owner or as the business CEO, I have customers who are unhappy because of X, Y, and Z. What can I do to make it more welcoming for them? If it was the squeegee people on the corner, then we should be doing something about it, because even some of the people who are current customers have complained about it. So let's do something about it. I don't think that needs to be adversarial, because if they're coming to spend their dollars, those dollars can be reinvested right into those communities that need the investment. If those dollars aren't coming and we have to pay for things like heroin, which are written into law, we're going to ultimately raise taxes, and it's going to cost the people who have decided to stay here more money. If we're gonna have to pay for that, if we're gonna have to pay higher insurance rates because the Kia boys are stealing 300 cars a week, it's gonna cost us more money. So
it's already bad in Baltimore car insurance.
It's already bad. So I look at the totality of everything, and that's kind of how I'm approaching this. Have there been some wins? Sure. If no one wants to give this current administration wins, they're not being fair to the current administration. Yes, there have been some wins. If people vote on just one segment, 1 year, if this year stays the way it is, if 6 months from now we can have the exact same conversation, and if they vote on just that, then that's what they vote on. Is that a fair judgment of where we are? I don't know. I'll let voters decide that, but I don't know if that would be fair.
Chelsea, the kept woman.
I have a question for you, Mr. Smith. Saturday, marijuana is legal. How do you see that impacting where we're going in this trend of lower numbers?
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's something that probably should have and could have been done in Maryland a long time ago. Okay. Maryland's, the so-called liberal state or progressive state, had some of the more stricter laws when we decriminalized it to 10 grams. That was only 10 grams. We had one of the lowest thresholds in the country for decriminalization. It could have been an ounce. I thought that we should have done away with the possession of marijuana law when we did that. It should have been either intent to distribute or personal use, one or the other. That's all. You're either selling it or you're using it.
Do you remember Kurt Schmoke? Remember they left him out?
I interviewed Kurt Schmoke on my podcast. I interviewed him on my radio show just a couple weeks ago. And in 1989, he was
when he was mayor.
Smith on WBAL radio, ironically enough. And he had this crazy idea to legalize drugs, to take the value out of them, and an effort to bring down the murder rate at the time.
And they joked him then. They joked him. They made a mockery.
And it's one of the reasons
Amsterdam
office again after he was finished being mayor, because he couldn't do the federal level because they thought he was crazy. Now it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Isn't that how it always goes down?
Yep.
My friend and my brother, TJ Smith, tell everybody on every platform at every opportunity that they get to hear more of this great wisdom and your amazing insights. Tell them where they can find you.
Oh, wow. Time flies when you're having fun. First, I appreciate you very much. But at TJ Smith Social on the social media channels. But WBAL News Radio 1090 and FM 101.5, the WBAL Radio app, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., Monday through Friday. I keep it real. Some of my brothers and sisters with the NAACP probably a little mad at me today because I was a little spicy with them today with the press conference, just because I thought there was a little bit more pressing matters going on at hand that we could be addressing. But that's where I am, and it's always a privilege to speak to all of you. I really appreciate it. And Shaka, who I know is in the background, I believe, or around, we stand in solidarity with that mess that he had to endure, which is just a sad testament in 2023, just over the border in Towson, of all places.
Right.
But don't spend no money there. I mean, that hit him in the pocket. It's one of those things. I know it hurts to have it happen to you, but I'm at a point in life where I'm not even surprised anymore. So I hopefully it can roll off his back, and hopefully the money can roll up out of that spot. And he suffers, the owner of that spot can suffer financially as a result of his stupidity.
He been getting hit hard, and the day he really got hit hard with the protest. You mentioned your podcast on WMAR. How we plug
My
into that?
old, I'm not there any longer. I'm on
Okay, okay,
just WBAL now. But yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Forgive me, WBAL. They might not say it's okay for him to come
yeah. I don't get myself in trouble.
back.
That's part of the resume.
Right,
That was
right,
part of
right.
the resume. Make sure I make that clear. I only got time for one job these days. But obviously, most important job is daddy. So
Yes.
happy
Yeah.
belated
That's
Father's
the
Day to
first.
you,
Yes.
Marvin. But being daddy and doing this job Monday through Friday, trying to stay in touch with the local issues and also trying to be fair with the local issues. And as I told them when I was negotiating, when we were having this conversation, I said, the one thing I'm not going to do, I can't do, is beat up the city every day. I'm not going to beat up the mayor every day. I'm not going to beat up the city every day. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to give credit and give credit where credit is due. And we take it from there. And I think
That's
we
good.
able to try to strike that
Hmm.
balance.
That's good.
TJ, I thank you for being with us, man. As
Indeed.
always, I'm telling you, as we get closer to this election, man, I
Yeah.
really will be reaching out again because I believe one of your voice is one of the voices that's bringing education to voters in Baltimore because I believe that we have to break that cycle. You know what they say when you do the same thing expecting a different result.
Hmm. Yeah,
They
we know
call
what
it
that is.
insanity, but
Yes.
I don't think I don't think it's by happenstance that you've gone from the brother who was presenting information around the police to the fabric of Baltimore, the midday ride. Um, and I know it's one slot better than that one, but we thank God that we got you where we are because I believe there are a lot more people. Because we got to break this one party mindset here in Baltimore if we're ever going to really see the necessary balance to be able to vote more educated. And brother, when I tell you, I try at any cost to not miss the 10 to 2.
I
I do a
appreciate
lot of the information
it.
that
Thank
I'm
you.
getting to fuel the conversations that we have here on this show is by paying attention because you got a lot more time to research and study than I did.
No,
I
all
still
good.
work the 9 to 5.
Well, I appreciate it. Tomorrow is definitely going to be hot. We getting into that report card, not just the mayor, but also the city council and also the state's attorney. So I'm gonna get into all of that tomorrow. And I appreciate you as always. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the questions because it's so much more to get into. It's going to be a very interesting time. I think after Labor Day, it's going to start heating up, and we'll see what this next field of people look like. Certainly won't be me.
That was going to be one of our questions because we've had a few candidates from the previous election on. But TJ, man, thank you so much for being
Absolutely.
with us today, man.
Anytime.
You and I honor the friendship that I had with you, man, because um, even at the time when I went through in 2018, and there was a lot of people who was on my neck, you had the responsibility of reporting from the BPD perspective of that, and you chose to, while having to acknowledge what they wanted you to talk about, but to make sure that people knew that I was a real contributor in this town, and that moment shouldn't define who I am. I remember how you spoke to make sure that you were clear that I was an ally and I was a friend, and I always appreciated just who you are. Your character has come forth as a man that I respect far greater than any professional space that we've had because you've shown time and time again the integrity associated with who TJ Smith is versus any platform that you've been on. And I really thank you for that.
No, appreciate that. I'm gonna tell you this right now, Marvin. I know we can go on forever, but we some of our bad moments. If some of mine were televised, I would hope that the world wouldn't turn its back on me and understand that moment doesn't define me. And we know that
That's
about you.
good.
You've
Yeah.
been out there in the streets and you saved more lives than any crime plan has. So we appreciate you. We appreciate all the brothers. We are us and all the advocacy groups that are out there doing the work in the community, in the trenches, because that's what we need. Everybody has a slice of that pie, and together we can get it done. But we have to keep it real, and I'm still about that accountability.
I need everybody to tune in next week as we're going to have my friend and my brother, Mr. Ray Kelly, with us. We're going to be talking about the community perspective of this change in BPD. He's a longtime advocate. He's put legislation in. That one of the big reasons we've got change like local control. He's been involved with the consent decree. But but he's still boots on the ground in the community doing that work. And we're going to hear from him the community response to the changes that we've seen in BPD. Are people hopeful? Have they lost hope? What is the perspective of the everyday person? I want you to always, as I say, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Be the change that you want to see. If you're somewhere and there's something wrong, if you saw it, it may be your responsibility to fix it. And always remember, above and beyond anything else, you can be more. Thank you for being with us today.